And therefore, the market shares has really been shrinking for some of the companies involved in these basic industries for Sweden, which is of great importance, not the least to mention small cities in Sweden. So I think that the global effects on the local labor market area and the local companies in Sweden is really, it's connecting all the time. We don't live anymore in one small village or city. We really live in a global market, all of us.
Thank you. Monsieur?
I would just like to add to support these macro support systems here presented. I think the education part, where each part actually learns how to do business in the various countries, and then they can better utilize the macro systems that is being built up with agreements between countries, between sort of economical blocks. And I think that is a really essential step to be really successful. When you understand, you know how to do it.
Thank you. So you have heard some of the answers here, which has had, as Claes-Göran said, some macro dimension. So allow me to ask a question which has got a micro dimension instead. And since you are so nice guys, nice persons, I think it's my role to be a little of the bad guy. So let me ask the following question, and that is quite concrete. I don't know if any one of you has got an answer. That is that when we are talking about how to improve, since many years we are aware of the fact that on the concept level, Sweden is very successful. Sweden has been invited, I don't know how many times, to China when it comes, for example, to smart cities, to creating smart cities. And they are looking at our concepts. We are discussing concepts and we get consultancy commissions. A little of the same goes for the healthcare sector. However, when it comes from going from sounds to things, when it comes to implementation, we don't see many of the Swedish companies in the implementing stage. We see German companies, Dutch companies, French companies, English companies, and we have been extremely involved at the concept stage, but not in the implementation stage. Of course, the big Swedish international corporations, they know how to do it. But here, many of these companies, SMEs, have difficulties. So, and I think that if we are to be successful in the future and increase in both directions, trade and investments, it is also very much a question, not only of the big corporations, but the SMEs. So, what do you think we could do in order to, in a more successful way, moving from sounds to things?
Well, it goes back to what I started to say, is that you need to really get down on a piece of paper in exact details the responsibilities and the rights in the cooperation. And in my experience, before I understood that, I lost something. But in the other situation where we were really tough to the point, then the Chinese part really behaved absolutely brilliantly, because they really stuck to the rules. And one needs to be respectful to one's own concepts and intelligence, because if you're not, the other party would actually think that they can do what they like with what is being presented, and hence the reason why Sweden hasn't been good implementers in those situations and lost a lot on that. So once one is respectfully sort of protecting one's own franchise, then the business will flow a lot easier and a lot better. that is the platform to actually sort of take the next step, but also create a better respect from the Chinese side to the Swedish side, and I guess also vice versa in this situation.
Any other comments regarding moving from sounds to things? I think that one problem is that, I mean, I'm the moderator, I'm putting the questions, I'm not giving the answers, but I think that one problem is, if we look into SMEs, that is that China is a very huge and difficult market actually, and the Swedish SMEs are quite small and lacking of resources. And when it comes to the implementation, there we do have a problem. I don't know if you have got some comments upon this.
Well, we have a saying, you know, that as a human being we have 2 ears and 1 mouth, meaning that we should listen much more than we are speaking. And I think to really get to understand, and that goes for every negotiation also as well, that you really, to be successful, you really have to understand what's the purpose and what's in it for the counterpart. I mean, writing on a paper is something, but to really understand what's important for them and what's important for me, then you can have an agreement that is a win-win situation. And for SMEs, of course, that's not always that easy. I mean, they don't really have the time. So I think there, from a Swedish point of view, we could get together and with the whole experience that we already have, educate and talk about and give platforms for also SMEs to take those steps much faster. And also to really, I can just give you an anecdote. I worked for some years with negotiating the Volvo cars sell-out, or Ford Motor Company sell-out of Volvo cars. That's the best way to describe it. And also with Saab Automobile. And I met a lot of people in China and also Chinese interested partners in Sweden. And I became quite close friend with one of them who didn't really succeed in business, but anyhow. And he explained for me that, and this is, I guess, common goods for you from China, but for a Swedish perspective. He explained for me that he was so proud. He has been working in the United States with one of the big manufacturer for 25 years. And now he had moved back to China. And he was so proud that because next year was the time to really renew the family book of his family. And I mean, in Sweden we are talking family trees, and so going back to, what, 16th, 17th century or something. And so I asked him, well, that's interesting. How old is your family book? It's 1,000 years old, he said. And it's being reviewed every 30th year. And the next year will be the next time. And now, living abroad for 25 years, moving back, at the position that they had at the time, he would have an even better page for himself and his family part in that family book. And if you really think about that and understand what's important for him, you realize quite easy that it's not the next result for the next quarter that's important. It's the long-term perspective and how will we achieve different things that's important. And getting to know that and understand that from a Swedish perspective, and how we can train each other to really go behind that, then we can have a platform for being more successful, even for the SMEs. But we need to take advantage of what we have learned and share our experiences.
Yeah, and what you tell there, that reminds me actually of a true story. This morning you mentioned the word trust. I remember when I was head of Invest in Sweden agency, I met in, and we opened actually in 2001, 2002, we opened the first foreign investment office in China. So Sweden, there we were quite early on. Anyway, I met a Chinese businessman, industrialist in China, and then I met him for 5 years. I visited once a year when I was in China. I was there very much often, more often, but I always looked to seeing him once a year in China, and he came to Sweden once a year. So we met twice a year. After 5 years, he said, Mr. Hammerich, now we know each other. Now we should start making business together. So that is just perhaps anyone has not got that time for waiting, but now and then it's very rewarding. Listen, before continuing, I would like, I excuse myself if I'm a little rough with you, but I would like to ask the following question. We all want to increase things, trade, investments, we all want to move forward. So I've got, and you just have to give one answer. Just one answer. In order to move ahead, which is the biggest obstacle or challenge, and which is the biggest potential, advantage? One question to each one of those two questions. I start with you, Klaus.
To increase trust between the two countries and understanding. That is great potential. The risk is the unbalanced financial situation of the world.
Okay, that is the obstacle.
Yes.
Okay, thank you so much. Mr. Hunt?
Yes, my answer would be same as sorry, there's a mutual trust. Yes, it's the foundation for the cooperation, and the obstacle I think is a lack of understanding of information. For how should we moving forward?
Okay, thank you. Camilla?
I will have the same answer for both questions. Cultural...
You complicate things.
Yeah, cultural understanding, and that means that this networking opportunity is really a great opportunity, but it can also be a challenge unless you don't take the opportunity to make new friends and contacts. So I think really it's the most important thing to meet other people, to get to know them, and then you will have trust in one.
Thank you.
Yeah, well, perhaps sad to hear, but more or less the same answers. And I think that trust goes to both ways. Also from a Chinese point of view, to understand how does the Swede function and what's important for Swedes. So trust is, of course, the most important of all. And we are on a very good way. I think there has been improvements for the last 10, 15 years that are really, really extremely good. So just keep on that, and we will find a way in Sweden to help the SMEs, to give them the platform to also take part. That was, once again, talking about our automotive industry when we had those discussions for 7, 8 years ago, that one thing is the manufacturer situation, but also the suppliers, who are often quite small companies. How should we make a platform for the suppliers to also get into the Chinese market and follow the manufacturers? And I think you need to see the systems like that and help each other.
You have touched upon it, but you have all mentioned, I think, trust. And I think we all agree upon that. But should we try to take it one step further? Because to say trust, that's okay. What would you like to see as a concrete measure, a very concrete measure, in order to increase trust?
Education. I think we need to educate those people to have better understanding. I think this was our function to be posted abroad, to educate not only Chinese but also the Swedish business community about the market, what's the potential, what's the possibilities, and what's the difficulties, to make them have a better understanding before they enter the market. I think that this education is very important.
Okay. So,
I would agree with Mr. Hahn that education is the key thing, both for the Chinese side and the Swedish side, to really learn how to do business in the various countries. And then also summarize that in an exact contract, so both parties know exactly what is expected from both parties. That is a good foundation to actually succeed.
I read a study report by Deloitte that 44% of the negotiation between Chinese investors and foreign partners was failed during the process of negotiation because they have a conflict between the cultures, understandings.
Yes.
So this is the major challenge, major obstacles. So we should focus on how should we, before they start the negotiation, we should give them more detailed information. How should we negotiate from a Chinese investor? How to negotiate with Swiss? How to match the two demands to interest, and now how to minimize the cultural differences.
Very important.
Yes, yes.
Yes, I think so too. We have seen many successful cases when Swedish companies have operated in China, invested in China and so on. But we have also seen many cases not that successful, among other things because of a certain not doing the homework sufficiently well, the preparations, and so on and so forth. And we have seen many Chinese companies coming to Sweden, some very successful, but we have also seen a lot of companies not being successful. And as you touched upon, Mr. Hahn, because of the fact that in the Swedish context, they wanted to do it in their Chinese way. And that does not work in Sweden, as well as the Swedish model does not always work in China. So this is a question of culture, comprehension, of understanding each other, creating trust, and so on and so forth. So, ladies and gentlemen, dear panelists, I would like to come back to the question I raised in the beginning, because in the headline here, it's said to explore business cooperation model. Do we have a model? Do we wish to have a model? What model should that be? Should be a government model? Should it be a business model? Should it be a mixed model? What do we mean by model?